Hello and welcome to Jazz Across the Pond, Jazz Interviews Reimagined, a brand new and a very exciting bringing together of two great nations. It's jazz talking like you've never seen or heard it before. Now let's bring on my partner in crime. Hello and welcome. There he is. And this shirt, what is it? Was this buy one, get one free or something this week?
I thought it was 2 for 1.
Ah, well,
I mean, they are pretty close, aren't they?
They really are. It's quite scary, to be honest. So.
Well, we'll just consider it Botanical Monday. How about that?
Well, that sounds pretty good to me. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Anyway, hi and welcome along. A warm welcome to Jazz Across the Pond, Jazz Interviewing, and here we are. I'm Roger Lee, a.k.a. the Jazz Cat.
And I'm Kevin Goolsby, and they call me Mr. G.
Mr. G, Kevin Goolsby, the Jack to my Daniels.
Ah, the Jack to your Daniels. Well, Roger, I'd rather be the Jim to your Beam.
Ooh.
I prefer bourbon over whiskey. You know, whiskey's made around the world, but bourbon's only produced in the United States using a little corn mash, which imparts some sweet undertones. So if you would, sir, make mine bourbon on the rocks, please.
Ah, with 2 fingers, yeah?
Exactly.
As Mr. Sinatra always used to say, let me have a Jack with 2 fingers. And everybody went, what does that mean? Great. That's another story. That's another interview.
It is. It really is.
That's an amazing one. But yeah, I mean, but we also, let's be politically correct. There are other bourbons and whiskies available, as we established with last week's artist. I mean, so let's not, on saying that, if Jim Beam or Jack Daniels would like to sponsor our show, feel free, they can sponsor it.
Yeah, the only thing we're saying is that, you know, all bourbons are whiskey, but not all whiskeys are bourbon.
Great. We clarified that. Let's move on. Now, very quickly, last week's interview.
Wow. I mean, what a shocker. I mean, Malcolm Strachan, he's the impressive composing Scottish trumpeter and co-founder, as you pointed out, of one of the UK's best jazz funk bands, the Haggershorns. But last week, I mean, think about it. We featured his solo jazz project, About Time, which Malcolm released last year. And it's an amazing project, but it was 20 years in the making.
Absolutely. It's just, and of course, don't forget, Malcolm also appeared on 2 projects of our featured artists on July the 12th on Jazz Across the Pond, Jazz Interviews Reimagined, the dynamic duo, of course, Acoustic Alchemy. They're going to be joining us, and you surprised me with that one last week.
Yeah, but you know what was even more surprising was Malcolm just kind of, you know, because he lives in a different world than we do, but he just went, oh yeah, I did that thing with Acoustic Alchemy. It was like, really? It was just, oh yeah, I forgot that one, I guess.
Oh yeah. I did add that to my CV. Yeah.
Just a minor point. It's like, wow, really? That's pretty incredible.
Doesn't it make you wonder?
We won't bring that up when Miles and Greg are here, though.
No. I'm sure they'll go, oh, Malcolm, yeah, great guy, lovely guy. And it makes you wonder that if the interview had carried on, how many other names would you turn around and gone, oh yeah, no, I did a gig with them as well.
Yeah, well, you know, Malcolm's not exactly a Jason Miles.
No.
Jason did a great job. And what a shocker that interview was. And anybody that has not seen all of Rogers and my prior interviews, there's a lot of stuff out there to absorb. But Jason Miles was a shocker in terms of everybody he's played with. But that doesn't have any bearing on who we're talking about and interviewing today.
But before we move on, you've just brought up Jason Miles. I've walked into the house tonight, and the postman, bless him, there was a nice little envelope. You don't know this. There was an envelope on the mat this morning, and inside was a lovely card, which I've just dropped. Okay, this is live. Okay, there was a lovely card. Okay, and in there it says thank you, and it says, dear Roger, please find enclosed my brand new CD.
Oh wow!
All right, and
it's called Dream Dancer.
Yeah.
Look at that cover.
Oh yeah, and this is literally, it's not been released yet. I've got one of the first copies in the UK, and it's produced by Jason Miles. And she said,
Beverly sent that to you.
She has sent that to me. So she sent that, and she said she's really looking forward to to joining us for the interviews in a couple of weeks' time. She's looking forward to where we're going to get the first play. So as soon as this interview is over, I'm shooting straight into my studio, and whack, it's going on. I'm going to have a good old listen to it.
There you go. Awesome stuff.
So another artist, she's coming up in about a month's time, something like that, from Yorkshire, a British artist. So anyway, listen, let's quick as we can, because we got a man that is in the green room. He's in the waiting room. He's sitting there, tapping his fingers, actually ready keen to join us. And it's an interview like all our interviews. This one we're looking forward to. Am I correct?
Absolutely. We've got some little tidbits we're going to share with the audience, and it's going to be a good interview.
Yep. So the man we're talking about is the wonderful Daryl Williams. He's literally in the green room, sitting there from California. So with the different time differences, he's been so patient, and just give us an aperitif, a bit of a taster of what to expect tonight. All right. This is a track from his most recent album. The album is called Here to Stay. The track we're going to play is called Now or Never, and it features a certain gentleman called Mr. Paul Brown.
I believe so. And Mr. Jonathan Fritzen on keys too, I believe.
Originally from Sweden. But Paul Brown, he'll be with us very soon. In about 3 weeks' time, he's going to be joining us.
Absolutely.
So ladies and gentlemen, just across the pond, sit back, get ready for a great interview. And we're just going to give you a little bit of taster now of who we're going to be interviewing tonight. The wonderful bass player, composer, producer, Mr. Daryl Williams, and the track is called Now or Never from the album Here to Stay. We'll be back straight back with Mr. Williams with us.
Hi, this is bassist, producer, and smooth jazz recording artist Daryl Williams from Los Angeles, California, and you are watching me on Jazz Across the Pond with the Jazz Cat and Mr. G. I hope you enjoy the show.
Wow, what a track. Incredible stuff. You've just been listening to that. That's the wonderful Daryl Williams from the album Here to Stay. The track we just played there is called Now or Never, featuring the wonderful Paul Brown and Jonathan Fritzen. Now, what can we say about tonight's very, very special guest? A very multi-talented bassist, composer, who has toured and performed and recorded with many of the top smooth jazz and R&B artists of today. Notably, Peter White, a former guest here on the show, Michael Lington, Paul Brown, coming up soon, Richard Elliott, Chaka Khan. Well, there ain't nobody, is there? There's a cue for a song.
That's
Jet
true.
Corber, Rick Braun, Jonathan Fritzen, and Gloria Gaynor. I'll tell you something, I will survive. I know that. Let's just mention a few there. Hey, I should be a DJ. I'm there. I'm on it.
You're on it. You have all the
be.
one-liners. You have them all.
Don't let him fool you, Daryl. He is a DJ. He is a DJ and a rather fancy guy in England. So,
ladies and gentlemen, please join us here on Jazz Across the Pond as we warmly welcome the one, the only Mr. Daryl Williams. Hi there.
woohoo!
How you doing? Happy to be here.
The crowd goes wild. Welcome,
We'll
Daryl.
edit some applause in later on.
Okay. Sounds good. I need applause.
Right, okay then, yeah. Let's kick things off. We've got a lot to get through on a very tight schedule thing. We'd like to know, can you tell us more about your childhood, your introduction to jazz music, and when you fell in love with the bass? Because our research, we've got a really good research team, both in the UK and the United States of America. Are we correct in saying, as a teenager, you opened for R&B acts for Lakeside and Al
Lakeside.
with gospel legend Shirley Caesar?
Yeah.
Tell us more about this, please.
Okay, well, with Shirley Caesar, I think I was 14 or 15 years old.
Oh my God.
And the music instructor at the school was also the music instructor at San Diego State. And he hosted a bunch of gospel shows and things like that. So he says, hey man, Shirley Caesar needs a bass player for this coming show. Can you do it? And I said, of course. I mean, I was in high school. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Of course. So I did it. It was incredible. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, that was great.
That also gave you the inside track with San Diego State University too, didn't it?
That absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's pretty amazing.
But back to
and
your childhood, Daryl, your childhood, where did you come from? A musical family? Where did the love of the music and jazz come from?
Well, my brother's a guitar player. So, we grew up playing together. But originally, I was living in Los Angeles, California. And in middle school, I was looking for an easy class. So I decided to join the orchestra. I didn't know anything about the orchestra. I don't know why. I just chose the orchestra. And I walked into class, and the only thing that was available was string, bass, or cello. So I chose the cello. Okay, so so I played the cello that entire year, and then we moved to San Diego the next year. So once again, I was looking for an easy class, so I joined the orchestra again. And then they were short. I think we had 5 cello players and 2 string bass players. So they asked if one of us would switch to string bass. I volunteered. And then the next year, my brother got a guitar. So he got a guitar. So I figured I wanted a guitar, but then everybody in the neighborhood had a guitar.
Right.
So I was kind of forced, even though I was playing string bass, I still wanted to play guitar, but there was already a bunch of guitar players. So I was kind of forced into playing the bass, really. I'd have to say it like that. I didn't I didn't think to myself, wow, I just really want to play the bass. I was kind of forced into it. But once I started to play it, I realized that it's a really important part of the band. Wow. It's really a big part of the band. That's where the groove really comes from.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is,
so that's kind of how I started playing.
That's brilliant. Well, after studying jazz at the San Diego State University, then did regular gigs backing many of San Diego's most prominent homegrown talents.
That's right.
Then moved to the Neon Lights of Las Vegas Strip, where you accompanied such nationally renowned headliners. I mean, Angela Bofill, we play a lot of her music.
Yes, sir. She was great. She was great. I worked with her. Chico Freeman, who's a great. He's more of a straight ahead fusion saxophonist. He's really like a jazz legend, really. Yeah. And just a bunch of a whole bunch of different people who came through Las Vegas at the time at the Blue Note Jazz Club.
Well, I mean, I've got Howard Hewitt, of course, of Shalimar.
Howard Hewitt.
Yeah.
I just worked with Howard.
Well, I did a show with Howard Hewitt years ago with Shalimar. I introduced Shalimar on when they came on stage. Keith Watson and also Chaka Khan. And you went on tour with her in California in 2008. Now, can you tell us a little bit more about your time on the road, Vegas, and your time on the road with Chaka Khan? Because what a wonderful story that must be.
Well, I can just explain it to you like this. I never heard her sing a wrong note at the time. And we actually performed at Casino Magic in it was Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. Okay, I mention that because that casino is gone now, and it's gone because of Hurricane Katrina. I mean, it's completely gone. It was wiped away. But I played a bunch of shows with her in 2003 and 2004, and it was a dream come true, really, just working with her. It was incredible. I mean, she was phenomenal. I never heard her sing a wrong note. And she'd stand off to the side of the stage to watch the band, smoking a cigarette, drinking a glass of wine, right? And then just come out and sing like nobody's business.
Wow.
Yeah, it was I mean, she's just a natural.
Unbelievable. Well, Daryl, your first solo project was released in 2007. It was well received by fans, music critics, and jazz charts alike. Then we flash forward 10 years, and you released your second solo project, Here to Stay, in 2017. Right. Now, everyone agrees.
10 years.
Everybody agrees that Here to Stay was well worth the wait.
Yes, sir.
And it features many of the artists with whom you appeared on their respective projects as their guest artists. And we've seen multiple situations where musicians have experienced long periods of time between projects. We mentioned earlier, before you came on board, last week's guest, Malcolm Strachan, he's a Scottish composing trumpeter, released his first jazz solo project about time after being in the business for 20 years.
Wow.
So you were fairly quick at 10. And then our mutual friend, guitarist, Mr. Ray Fuller, is on the verge of releasing his second project, 17 years after releasing his first project, The Weeper, back in 2004. So share with our audience the factors that came into play resulting in the 10-year span between your projects. I mean, we know you are busy, but tell us what are some of the contributing factors why you and other musicians that we might find a long gap between projects.
Okay, here's the real story. I was working with Huge Groove, a bunch of individuals at the time, but in 2007, when I started to work with Huge Groove, actually, I believe he had Born to Groove at the time. That was his record at the time. Okay, so all of my songs for the next CD were actually already written in around 2008, okay? And I believe he released 4 or 5 albums from 2007 until about 2015, maybe 4 CDs, I believe he did. And, one day he looked at me and he said, "Man, I've done 4 CDs and you're still working on that same CD that I played on." He played on Here to Stay in 2008 and Harvesting Way in 2008. And he said, "I can't believe you're still working on the same album." So at that point in 2015, that's when I said, okay, this is ridiculous. And I started working on the record. From that point on, I went full, I was working on the record almost every day at that point.
Well, is that CD shaming? Isn't that CD shaming?
That is CD shaming. He gave me a hard time. And actually, my friend Adam Holly was giving me a hard time because he started working on his CD in, I think, 2013 or 14, and he finished his CD in 2016. So he was giving me a hard time. So I mean, it was actually embarrassing because I took so long to finish the record. It was kind of ridiculous, you know.
They call it bowing to pressure.
Yeah, that's basically it, you know. And at this point, I'm not waiting another 10 years for the next record.
Well, we're so.
Well, I tell you what, that 10-year wait was worth it, though. Wow.
I'm not doing that.
Right.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it. I put a lot of time into it for sure.
But it's a fabulous, fabulous album, and we're going to take a quick interlude now because I'm sure a lot of the Jazz Across the Pond followers are they know your music, appearing with all these wonderful artists, but as a solo artist. And we're going to play that aforementioned track you've just spoken about now with Monsieur Groove. And so we're going to play the actual title track from that album is called Here to Stay. We'll be straight back with you. And we'll also try to find out that why Daryl didn't get the dress code, because Kevin and himself are looking matching. We'll be straight back with this interview. Ladies and gentlemen, have a listen to this. Daryl Williams.
Welcome back to Jazz Across the Pond, Jazz Interviews Reimagined with the Jazz Cat and Mr. G. You've been listening to Here to Stay, the title track from our guest's second project, written and produced by the talented bassist, Mr. Daryl Williams. Roger?
Yeah, a brilliant track. I love the album. I know, Kevin, I know you feature a lot of the tracks on The Smooth Jazz Train on Thursday nights. I feature the track on my Wednesday night show here in the UK called Jazz Moods. So, and whenever we play it, we always get great feedback from our listeners.
Awesome.
But you returned to the center stage as a frontman, and you featured your project Here to Stay, which was released in 2017. And it was the Best New Artist nomination from the Smooth Jazz Network. And you called the collection and production with sax player Mr. Groove, as we've already just spoken, and the Labor of Love. Featured 8 of your own hand-penned originals, along with a pair of remakes that have given it your own personal taste. So if I may ask you, what is your personal reason for the 2 remakes of the album? Why are they so special to you?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that question. The Doctor was one of my favorite songs because I was a big fan of the band Fatburger. I kind of grew up listening to them in San Diego. They were from San Diego. And the keyboardist, Carl Evans, was a really good friend of mine. And he wrote The Doctor. So it was really like a tribute song is why I did it, you know. And you know, once again, I've always loved that song. That was one of my favorite songs when I was in my late teens, you know. So that's why I did that one. And the reason I asked Michael Paulo to play on it is because he knew those guys as well. He knew Hollis Gentry, Carl Evans Jr. He knew all those guys. So it was easy, you know, for him to, you know, to want to play on it. So, and he played incredibly on the song as well.
Well, Fatburger, on my wall behind me, I've actually got a whole series of Fatburger CDs there. Big fan of them. I love their stuff.
I grew up listening to those guys. I had every record at the time.
Incredible band. At
this point, I still have the actual CDs, every actual CD. And I think I have a record, an actual record of Fatburger from the late 80s. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, I was a big fan.
Daryl, Here to Stay has, and we've already talked a little bit about it, but Here to Stay has an incredible list of guest and featured artists, including Huge Groove, Michael Lington, Jeff Lorber, Paul Brown, Marcus Anderson, Jonathan Fritzen, Elin Trotman, Greg Manning, you already mentioned Michael Paulo, and Scott Wilkie. That's just an amazing list of artists by any measure. But I believe that securing a spot with Huge Groove was a seminal point in your career.
Yes.
Because it created some incredible opportunities for you in studio and on tour. Right. Now, as Roger would say, if our researchers have done their homework, and if we understand correctly, a friend of yours and a mutual friend of the Jazz Cat, Mr. G, gave you a glowing endorsement of your talents to the one and only Mr. Huge Groove. And that endorsement came from the outstanding composing guitarist, which we've already mentioned, Mr. Ray Fuller. If you would share with our viewers just a little information about your friend and advocate, Mr. Ray Fuller.
Okay, what happened is I had just moved to Temecula from Las Vegas, which is, Temecula is about an hour and a half outside of Los Angeles, you know, so that's why I just tell people, if they ask me where I live, I usually just say LA, because when I say Temecula, they say Temecula. Never heard of it.
Sounds like a condition.
Right. So, and that was mid-2007. And Ray actually, you know, he puts together his own shows for his organization, Weeper's Friends. Okay, so he needed a bass player. He called me and he said, Huge Groove is going to be on the gig. Brenda Russell. He ran down all the names and he said, do you want to do it? I said, yeah, man, I'll do it. And once again, I had just moved to town. Okay, so at rehearsal, he was hyping me up to Huge Groove. He was saying, Huge, this guy right here, man, he's a great bass player, great songwriter, man. You should check him out, blah, blah, blah. So and we did the show, and the show went great. And a few weeks later, I got a phone call from Huge, and he hired me, and I've been
Wow.
working with him since then.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So it's a
Well,
great story. It was fun too.
yeah, it sounds it. Well, I mean, you already alluded to it because, of course, before writing the songs for Here to Stay, you moved your family from Vegas and you moved
Yes.
to your new town there. The compositions were inspired by the different experiences that you went through on your journey.
Right.
And throughout that period, and it was apparent and important and informative time of your career yourself. Now, would you further elaborate, why the difference? I know that when we speak, and we've spoken to some jazz musicians who have moved from New York to California, and the different feel that the musicians actually bring. But I mean, being so close, well, relatively so close, what was the difference from Las Vegas to moving to California? And what gave you that desire and that different opinion, that different feeling to it?
I just had this conversation with a friend of mine on Sunday about Las Vegas. It's really like its own bubble. Okay, it has nothing to do with the outside music community at all. It's really its own thing, its own shows, and you can work every night in Las Vegas doing something. But it's a bubble, is what it is. And I basically got tired of being in the bubble, so that's why I moved to LA. And it was, to Temecula. And it was basically starting over. And in 2006, when we decided to move, that's when I wrote Now or Never, because at that point it was like, if we don't move now, then we're going to be stuck here in Vegas. So it was really like now or never kind of thing. So that's when I wrote that song, and that was 2006. So yeah, all the records actually, I mean, all the songs on the record actually mean something like Do You Remember, for example. The reason that's kind of a funky song is because I grew up playing funk with my brother. He's a guitarist, and
Right.
I was kind of reminiscing on that, and that's why I called the song Do You Remember. So
Right.
all of them actually mean something, and Here to Stay, that means exactly what the title says. I'm here to stay.
Brilliant.
I plan on staying in this music business, and trying to make something happen. That was in 06 and 07, so it was really like a transitional time, and that's the reason I wrote Here to Stay, because at that time I had to make some huge decisions if I was going to stay in the music industry or do something else, because I moved here with no gig basically.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, so it was I was starting over, but I was determined to make it happen. So that's why I wrote Here to Stay. So all of them mean something,
Well, I know that in the past you were quoted as saying, speaking of this time in your life, you said, that's when I first started playing in Huge Groove's band and did a tour with Chuck
Right.
Lober a couple of years later.
Right. Yeah.
And then in between is when my very good friend and mentor, Carl Evans Jr., passed, which was devastating.
Right.
Now, we've already talked a little bit about your relationship with Carl Evans, and we've talked a little bit about Carl, but just so because some of our viewers may not know, and we've already said some of these things, but Carl Evans Jr. was an amazing composing keyboardist, and as we said, founding member of the outstanding San Diego-based contemporary jazz band Beckberger. Like yourself, Daryl, Carl was also a member of a very tight funk band, which I think you probably heard about, called Power. Right?
Nathan East, I know where you're going.
The band was so impressive. The legendary soul singer Barry White hired the band and took them on the road for the tour that he was running at the time.
Yeah.
Now, Carl also performed and recorded with jazz legend Cannonball Adderley, the multi-genre singer, composer, and producer Mr. Stevie Wonder, and the sultry singer-songwriter Ms. Anita Baker.
Anita Baker, that's
now,
right.
While it was during this period that Carl passed on April the 10th, 2008, of complications from his battle with diabetes. Now, you've talked about the significance of the doctor on Here to Stay and asking Michael Paulo to be your guest artist on that particular track.
Right.
We've talked a little bit about Carl, but if you would just take a moment to share a little bit more about your friend and mentor, Mr. Carl Evans Jr.
Well, the one thing about him also is he was really honest about music and about you as a musician. If you needed to work on something, he would tell you. And it was always in a nice way, always in a constructive way, but he was very direct in that sense. And that's kind of how Nathan East is. They came up together. So he was real direct and always honest, like I said, about musicianship and also about being serious about music. And if you weren't serious about music, he wouldn't even waste his time.
It'd snap you back.
Right. He wouldn't waste his time.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. And, you know, so I used to watch those guys. I used to sneak into clubs when I was 16, 17 years old in San Diego. I had a fake ID and I didn't look anything like the ID at all. But but they'd always let me in. All the guys at the front would always let me in. So even though, like I said, I didn't look anything like and actually it was an expired driver's license. Okay, so I was walking around, sneaking in clubs with an expired driver's license, and they always let me in. So,
okay.
Hey, I was determined.
Oh yeah, I mean, I take my hat off to your determination. Can we just point out to any of our viewers, we don't encourage you to do this, and we don't endorse you to do this. This is not the correct way to go around life.
What a role model you are, Daryl. What a role model you are.
Hey, well, not to say I didn't break any laws, but actually I did.
Yeah.
But I didn't commit any crimes. You know, no real crimes actually.
Well, Roger and I won't go there either, so we'll just move on. If
it makes you feel any better, I started gigging when I was 12 years old, and you weren't allowed to work in an establishment until you were 16, where they were serving alcohol. So that I used to be working as a DJ, but they put me near the fire escape. So if the police ever came, they just pushed me out the fire escape and get rid of me. So I've been there. I know what it's like. Yeah.
Wow. 14 as a DJ?
I was 12, 13 years old. Yeah.
12. Wow.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that was only 20 years ago. You understand? You
know?
Here
we go.
Here we go.
So Roger's young enough to be my son. That'll be the next story, you know.
Myself, when I talk about Fat Burger, because that was late 80s, early 90s. So
there you go.
I'm kind of dating myself a little bit, you know.
Okay, Daryl, you generated praise from the Jazz Times, and you picked up a national airplay on Solux XM. And you became a fixture on the contemporary jazz scene, where you have shared the stage with some big heavy hitters, when we may say. Richard Elliott, Peter White, the wonderful Peter White.
Yes, sir.
Peter White, Gerald Albright.
I love Peter.
Brenda Russell, we've mentioned.
Yes, sir.
We've also mentioned, well, Jessie J. She's coming on with us. She's on in about September time. I think she's joining us.
Wow, I've worked with Jessie a lot.
Oh, she's great. Jeff Costa, former guest here on the show.
Yeah.
And Blake, Aaron, and Niles. There's some major names there. And so can you please tell us more what it's like to work with these artists, and what have they, you know, what do they bring to the table? You've sat back and you've been, that's amazing. I'm going to have a go at that.
Well, let's start with Peter White. Okay.
Yeah.
He's so easygoing, right? He's a great guitarist, great musician, but he's also he's another one who's very serious and very honest about the music and what he wants. So when you play with him, he wants you to have fun, of course, but he also wants you to play the music.
Yeah.
Have fun. Let's all have fun, but still play the music. And that's what I enjoy about him. He's also really encouraging as well.
He's also a Brit.
He's also a Brit. Yeah, but no, he's great. Richard Elliott is phenomenal. Rick Braun, phenomenal. Who?
He's a Scot.
Oh yeah, that's
Richard Elliott.
Huge Groove, of course. I just talked to Huge this morning. I talk to you a few times a week.
Wow.
you know, and Jeff Lorber. I learned a lot from him, especially about songwriting, owning your music, and things like that. He said, anytime you sign a record deal or a publishing deal or anything like that, it's almost like you're betting against yourself.
Yeah.
You know, if you truly believe in yourself, you shouldn't be afraid to invest in your music.
There you go.
Yeah.
Or believe that you'll be successful even without a record company or whatever. So I mean he gave a lot of incredible advice to me.
Wow.
Yeah, we've had a lot of jazz artists that have talked about, at least in their own mind, about the necessity of owning your own music, controlling your own destiny. Not being
most guys don't.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And you know, I'm happy with being independent because, you know, once again, I own my music and I can write what I want to write. And I'm a side man, so if it doesn't work out, I can still go playing bass, still go back to playing bass for other people. So I'm always honest with everything I write, and I mean everything I write. If I write something, I'm not thinking to myself, well, darn it, I hope this is a good radio song. Maybe if I do this. No, I write the music that I really love. So.
Well, Daryl, I think since Here to Stay was released, 4 years ago, I don't think there's too many people that think of you as a sideman anymore. That's just such an incredible project. I mean,
but I still work with a bunch of different people, you know.
Yes, you do, and because they want you, that's why.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Oh,
I appreciate that. You know, I had a lot of shows in 2020 lined up. It was going to be a great year, but it's like that year never happened. So at this point, we're kind of it's a reset, right?
Absolutely.
It's like, you know, it's a reset for everyone, and it's an opportunity to start from one and try not to make any mistakes in this year and just keep moving forward and up, you know.
Great. Kevin, last comment. Time is running out.
Yes, Roger, if I might, I would just like to invite everybody who's watching us to join the Jazz Captain Mr. G for the next 6 interviews that we have with the following 6 jazz artists. We've got Lisa Adio, Paul Brown.
I played on her record.
Yes, Brian Bromberg, Beverly Byrne, Acoustic Alchemy, and Philippe Sace. So that's not a bad list of 6 artists we've got coming up. So we had to start with a big act, Daryl. And that's why we plugged you in, brother. So,
well, I appreciate it. I just want to mention. I just want to mention Brian Bromberg. Okay.
Wow.
Incredible musician. He also used to live in San Diego. I just want to mention that he lived in San Diego, I believe, in the mid to late '80s. So I've been a big fan of his for a long time as well.
Well, we're going to finish the show off tonight with a track from your first album, That Was Then. We've gone through the album and both Kevin and myself mutually agreed. We felt that the cover one was the fabulous Everything Must Change. It's a brilliant cover. And apparently it's one of your favorite tracks from the album as well, Daryl, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah. Now, and I also want to mention about that on, I actually have Ronnie Foster on keys on that song, and he was the original keyboardist with George Benson, who played on that recording with George Benson.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's on that. He's playing on keyboards on Everything Must Change.
Well, it's one of those classic songs that has been done so many times. Of course, originally it was done in 1974 on the Quincy Jones album, Body Heat.
Right.
That was the first ever version of it, of course, with the man who wrote the song.
Right.
Quincy Jones, Billy Paul, Judy Collins, Randy Crawford, she named an album after it. And of course, then came George Benson, Walter Jackson, Peggy Lee's had a go at it, and Nina Simone's had a go at it. The list goes on and on. But
Michael Lincoln.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, he's had a go at it.
Michael Lincoln, yeah.
But we're going to finish with your version of it, because it is a lovely, fabulous version. Who's singing on it?
It's a guy named Ron Stansfield. He's a great vocalist from Las Vegas. He's actually a pastor at this point. I mean, he wasn't a pastor then in 06 when he sang on the song, but yeah, he's a pastor now in Las Vegas. Ron Stansfield.
Look out for that
Yeah.
one.
Yep.
I wish we could carry on talking. The time is not on our side, unfortunately. It's running away with itself. And Daryl, Mr. Williams, it is a joy to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us here on Jazz
Thank
Across
you very
the
much.
And
I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you.
not at all. It's been an
Our
absolute pleasure.
Daryl. Our
Any last
pleasure.
thing from yourself, Daryl? Any passing thought?
Yeah, I have a few things. My website is darylwilliamsmusic.com.
Mhm.
And please keep your eyes out for my next single on July 19th with my good friend Jeff Lorber.
Oh,
It's called, I think you guys will like the
what's the
title.
name of it again, Daryl?
It's
I'm
called
sorry.
Goldilocks.
Goldilocks.
Oh,
Like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. basically.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, are you gonna?
Interesting.
I'm gonna put my head on the block now. Are you gonna give us the special that we can have probably made the first airplay in the UK of that song?
I'll send it to you guys. It goes for ads on the 19th. I'll send it to you guys the week before. How's that?
Oh,
Wow.
wow,
Woohoo.
that's good. We
Okay.
can't ask more than that.
Awesome.
Say
All I
goodnight.
ask is that you don't play it until the 17th.
Yeah.
So that's still a head start. That's still before everybody else.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, the
I'll send it
wonderful.
a week early.
All right, the wonderful Daryl is say goodnight, Kevin.
Good night, Kevin.
And
Kevin, good night.
from him. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching the wonderful Daryl Williams. 2 albums, add them both to your collection. You will not be disappointed. They are fabulous albums. Next week, another interview from Kevin, from myself, from Daryl Williams, from California. Ladies and gentlemen, look after yourself, take care, and until next time, good night.
Everything must change. Nothing stays the same. Everyone will change. No one stays the same. The young become the old. Mysteries do unfold, for that's the way of time. Nothing and no one goes unchanged. There are not many things in life you can be sure of, except rain comes from the clouds, sun lights up the sky, and hummingbirds do fly. Winter turns to spring. The wounded heart will heal, but never much too soon. But everything must change. The young become the old. Mysteries do unfold, but that's the way of time. Nothing and no one goes unchanged. There are Rain comes from the clouds, sun lights up the sky. Hummingbirds do